This is FRJH Racing, and I'm back here for a mega drift car event, and also to drop some knowledge on how to make like true to life drifting. I'm mixing a lot of stuff I've known over the years and finally sat down and like, hey, let's make this happen. So first of all, this effect kind of lets you do a little burnout, which is cool. But it also mixes a couple concepts, like first thruster sleds, actually my roll rockets, and then just some stuff I knew about wheels for a long time. So anyway, you'll see here I can get some pretty natural drifting in without it spinning out too much, and this can be tuned as well. The other thing is, like, I'm actually counter steering, so this, once you tune the balance of this, you can get like something that has a lot of oversteer or something that's pretty dialed in. So I'm just going to show how to make this, and then you can build a light cube body around this and it should be all good. But there's a few key concepts here that change the handling characteristics, so that's what I'm going to kind of show. So, and you can get these results that are, it's actually got a lot of control. Really a good reminder of almost how drifting used to be like with normal wheels. And also, it's not like a thruster sled where it just is a sliding set of wheels not touching the ground. It's about 50% a thruster sled, and then here, anyway, I'll stop talking about this and actually show you what's going on. And I'll post this frame on the CRF, and I'll take all the stuff off so that anyone can buy it, and then you can apply what I show here to dial in your setup. And of course, I'm making it so that you can put like a car body on it that actually looks like a car, so you can kind of stay true to life with the theme. So anyway, the first thing is you want to make sure your center of gravity indicator's on with the O key, and that's what mine's binded to, but you can check that. And so let me see if I can break this down to a couple steps. So the first thing is that wheels by themselves have a contact point where if you exceed it, it will just not have traction. So you can use like a cosmetic, like mainly use some kind of cosmetic. You can use basically anything, but as long as it's like 2 cubes, I want to say, from the bottom of the wheel, you should be good. But you gotta have to find the sweet spot, because if it's too high, it looks kind of weird, and if it's too low, the wheels do this thing where the suspension lowers as you go faster. So what will happen is, if this is not high enough, when you let off the forward key or the rear key, the wheel will drop down and touch the ground, and it'll like kick it up. So this is a leaning car kind of build. So you'll see that the plane that this is on is 1 cube lower than where the front wheels are. So see that? If I look at the plane, I'm on the center there, and as I go to the front, it's 1 cube up. So then there's that lean to it, and then that angle to this point allows that to kind of be raised up. And so that's the first step, is that you need to have the rear wheels not having grip. Okay, so then the second thing about wheels is that a car that has a center of mass that's in front of the center of wheelbase, and I talked about this, is actually my first video I talked about this, and it still applies regardless of all the changes that I've made. This is actually still very applicable. So as you move the center of mass towards the front wheels and away from the center of wheelbase, the car becomes extremely susceptible to not drifting. And why this is important is because if you kept this as it is, like if you were to just build like a balanced frame with none of this other stuff, this would just spin out all the time because you have no rear grip. So you're countering the no rear grip with a center of mass that's so far forward that it doesn't want to drift. But it also does because that's no rear grip. Okay, so that's the first step. So now for tuning is you need all these thrusts, and this is in keyboard controls as well. You can use camera, I guess, but I like my camera controls. So you just have steering thrusters here in the back, and the distance from the rear will have two relationships. So first of all, if you have them really close to the center of mass or the rotating point of the assembly, which is the front wheels, you get as you move them closer, there's a fixed velocity they can run at or target. And so it means it'll be more snappy, but also it'll be less able to counter inertia. So as you start, like if you start swinging out, it won't counter that as well, but it will be more responsive. So like if you make a lot of inputs, it'll be more susceptible to changing direction correctly. But if you have a really big, like if you're swinging really fast, like if it's rotating, it won't be able to handle that after a certain point. And then also that will lead to the next point, is how to counter that. So anyway, you need a lot of thrusters to have to control your drift angle while you're going. So then you'll see these rudders here. So what these rudders do when they're mounted in these positions only, so they have to be pointing upward. Like, see how they're mounted? They could be this way, or they could be mounted this way, or they could be mounted this way. But they have to be pointing up and down. The yellow arrows have to be pointing that direction. So what this does is it deactivates the self-flying stuff, the automatic, and it turns these into rotational dampers. So what that means is as you add these, the more resistant this is to spinning out, basically. And it also you can lock in a drift angle much more effectively. Instead of adding mass, it actually dampens the rotation without adding mass. So I'll show you what this does as I remove these. And any rudder works. And also this effect adds at the center point. So at the mounting point. So if you can imagine like a sphere here, that is where this damper, but because it's a rotating moment, it doesn't really matter where it is relating to the center mass. So you just kind of add them wherever you want, but the orientation is what matters. So I just removed that. I'm going to go to test mode, and it will act totally different. It'll spin out very easily. So I'll kind of show you. See how it just instantly wants to like spin out. So this, like, I'm just putting little inputs in, and it's pretty controllable, but it does have a tendency to like, let me get it going. See, I can almost lose it there. All right, so this is right on the like, you can really fine tune your frame here. So I'm gonna now encounter that. I'm gonna add 2 sets of these, and you can see the drastic difference in handling. So you can really tune in your handling characteristics of your drift, and it's really cool because once you add like a body to it, it's gonna throw it off. So let me grab some of these, and I'm gonna add, what did I say, 2 more sets. And so then if you remembered how I just like was quickly spinning out, watch what this does. It's like night and day. It's super cool. And so see, now I'm adding much bigger inputs, and see how it's not spinning out. So this is a trick I learned with roll rockets, and like I even like let it really hang out there, and you can counter steer to kind of fight it. So if you find yourself spinning out a lot with this effect, just add more of these rudders, and as long as their position doesn't matter, but the way they're oriented is what matters. You see how they're all pointing up? That is what does this effect. So you can pretty much add them wherever you want, and it doesn't matter what their relative position to the center of mass. It's just it just changes the rotating characteristics of the vehicle. Alright, so that's we're on the last few steps here, and hopefully I can make this as quick as possible. Is you'll see the props, and basically what the props do is that they prevent the car from stalling out at low speed. So as you start drifting, the wheels have a tendency to want to slow down and stall out, or they think they're spinning out, so then they slow down. So the props overpower that and keep you going at a good speed. And so I think this is a pretty good position for them, because you can still have a pretty good cockpit here, and you can still build a body around it. So I don't really think the props are going to be too invasive. And besides that, I mean, that's pretty much how this is done. Okay, so let me just summarize it. Is that you have a light frame with all light cubes in the back, and then you got your turning thrusters, and then you have a lot of mass in the front. These are heavy cubes in the front, and then you have front thrusters and props. Mainly the props are what get you, but then this adds speed boost, so you can add your total top speed. So you do that, and then you lift up the rear wheels with some kind of whatever cosmetic. It does not matter. And then finally you can fine tune your oversteer with the vertically oriented rudders or wings. They both do the same thing. These have much more rotational damping, but they're also super big. So if you just add more of the rudders, they're good. And again, their position doesn't matter, their orientation does, and the amount of them. So the more that you have, the more it'll feel like it doesn't really rotate, and then the less you have, the more tendency you have to totally spin out. So that is a guide to build your mega equivalent of a true-to-life drift car, and I hope that this gets this going again. So yeah, if you have any feedback, look for Drift Mega